Well, hello again everyone, welcome back to my channel, this time for a full tutorial on the wagon wheel which I brought to everyone's attention a couple of months ago when I was looking for a strategy to try to find the winner of the Melbourne Cup. Now this was the way the wagon wheel looked at that particular time, but as I mentioned recently I have made some changes to it, so let's just quickly summarise those changes. Rather than the bad barrier going from 5 down to 1, I've adjusted it from 4 down to 1 so that it's easier to code in Excel. I've also adjusted the finishing position totals so that rather than being in bands, there are numbers for each individual total. So if we looked, for example, with form totals of 5 through to 7, all of those got a score of 27 previously. Now, if your form total is 5, you get 28 points, 6, you get 27, and if your form total is 7, you get 26 points. And so there's some minor tweaks there. Thirdly, I did adjust the weight bands because two of them had a range of 2.5 kilograms and this one only had a range of 1.5. And so therefore, I've now adjusted it so that the weight bands are all 2.5 kilograms. And then less than 53, there's not many races where horses run with less than 53, and then greater than 61.5, and this was just a typo over here when I originally put that together. So we've adjusted the weight bands. Now looking at that weight and class table, it's pretty easy to see that class is worth 5 points. You know, if the difference between running in the same class versus running down in class is a 5-point differential, and the same thing, the difference between running between the same class of race or then going up in class, there's a 5-point differential. So class basically is worth 5 points, and looking at the numbers up and down here is quite clear. You know, if you had 53 kilograms you were getting 27 points here, but at 59 kilograms you're only getting 21. And so there was a 6-point differential for a 6 kilogram difference, which means there is a 1-point penalty for each extra kilogram that you're carrying. And just reiterating that the bonus or penalty for class is basically 5 points. If you're up in class, you lose 5 points. If you're running in the same class, nothing happens. And if you're running down in class, then you get a bonus of 5 points. And so let's looking at, say, the weight situation. Here's a race that I'm going to be looking at today, not betting on it, and it certainly doesn't come up meeting the metrics for a bettable race, but just to describe how the strategy works. In this particular race, the maximum weight carried by under oath here is 61.5 kilograms. The minimum weight by Roger's Day is 55.5. The mid value between that high and low weight is 58.5 kilograms. So that's sort of like the benchmark, so to speak. So if we look at, say, Swiss Hero carrying 60.5 kilograms, it's 2 kilograms more than the mid-value weight, so it gets a penalty of 2 points. Mr. Pickwick is carrying 0.5 kilogram more, so it gets a penalty of 0.5 point. Unique Artist is carrying 1 kilogram less, so he gets a bonus of 1 point. And the bottom weight, Roger's Day, gets the full bonus of 3 points in this particular situation. Looking at the other part of the table which I've changed, the good jockey has been changed to now there is no entry for a jockey other than giving a bonus of 2 points if you think that the jockey is outstanding. And I've only got 2 jockeys that I'd ever give a bonus to, and they are Jamie Carr and James McDonald. In handling the track, I've just renamed it to a heavy track bonus. So if the race is being run on a very heavy track and the horse has clearly got very good form on heavy tracks, like it's run several times on heavy tracks and it's always been placed, then you would give it a bonus of 5. Fortunately, we don't race on heavy tracks all that often. And then we haven't changed the fact that if the horse has won at the distance, it gets 8 points. And if it's won on the track, it gets 3 points. And so bringing this all together, here's how I'm now looking at the wagon wheel for coding purposes when it comes to using Excel. The price and barrier numbers range from 0 to 10, and so therefore the benchmarks, for want of a better way of putting it, halfway between there is 5. The total of the last 3 runs ranges from 3 up to 30, and so therefore the benchmark is halfway between those two, which is 16.5. As far as weight is concerned, there is 1 point per kilogram, and the benchmark is the maximum weight plus the minimum weight divided by 2, as I described just a moment ago. There are 3 class numbers. The change of class: if you're going up in class, then you have a penalty of 5 points. If you're in the same class, you get no points, and that's the benchmark. And if you're going down in class, then you get a bonus of 5 points. There's a jockey bonus of 2 if the jockey is outstanding, and there's a heavy track bonus of 5 if there's clearly evidence that the horse is well suited to a heavy track. And because the one on the track and or distance scores run between 0 and 11, then the benchmark is 5.5. And so let's apply that to Mr. Pickwick in this particular race. Now, the information is obtainable from the TAB website. That's www.tab.com.au. First of all, we've got the price over here, and we can see that Mr. Pickwick is the second favourite in this race. Favourite at $3.30, Mr. Pickwick at $3.60 is the second favourite. It's drawn in barrier 7, which is only a fair barrier, and so therefore when we look at its point score for price and barrier, it gets 6 points because it's a fair barrier and it's the second favourite. The benchmark is 5, and so therefore it gets a rating of 1. If we come back and look at its last 3 starts, even though it had a spell in there, we still include the race before the spell. So we add up 4 and 3 and 1, which comes to a total of 8. The appropriate number of points for a total of 8 is 25 points, with the benchmark being 16.5. It gets a rating of 8.5. Looking at its weight, it's carrying 59 kilograms. The benchmark for this race is 58.5. That's the mid value between the top and the bottom weight. So it gets a weight rating of -0.5, so it gets a penalty for that. Now, the change in class rating can be found by opening up the form guide for Mr. Pickwick to display all of its most recent races and the commentary at the bottom. And it's down here that I access whether the horse is racing down in class, in the same class, or up in class. In this case, Mr. Pickwick is racing in an equal class race. In other words, same class, which means it gets a rating of 0. There are no superior jockeys riding today, so there are no jockey bonuses. For the heavy track bonus, we need to look at the top of the page on Tab Guide, and we see up here an assessment of the weather, which is fine, and the track is a good 4, and so we'd only be really considering putting a heavy track bonus in if this was a heavy and with a 9 or a 10 sitting in brackets behind here. So the smaller the number here, the faster the track is. So good runs are at 3 and 4. Once you get up to like about 5 or 6, 7, then it becomes soft, and then it becomes heavy once it gets to about 8 or 9 or 10. So it's up around there that you would consider putting in a heavy track bonus. And to make an assessment of whether you will give a horse a 5-point bonus as a heavy track bonus, this is where you would look under the form guide. So we're looking at Under Oath here. In a soft track, it's had 12 starts for 3 wins and 4 placings. On a heavy track, 4 starts for 2 wins and a placing. And so you would certainly perhaps give it some consideration. I would be leaning more to wanting to see perhaps 5 or 6 goes with placing in all of them, with maybe at least half winners. But this is getting pretty close. So that if this was a heavy track today, I'd certainly be considering giving Under Oath a 5-point bonus. But looking at that, I might just do that little subjective tweak and maybe give it something like a 2 or a 3-point bonus, because many of the other horses in the race have no heavy track form whatsoever, and their soft form is not all that flash either. And so if it was a heavy track, you'd be wanting to give Under Oath a little bit of an extra point or two to make allowance for that fact, I think. And then lastly, we need to find the information about whether the horse has won on the track or at the distance. And that is also found on the form guide once you've opened up that form for Mr. Pickwick. And it's in this section of the form guide up here. What these numbers mean here is it is run on the track once and it hasn't been placed, and so therefore it doesn't get 3 points for that, but it has run over this distance twice and won once, and so therefore because of that win then it gets 8 points for having won at the distance. So if there's a 0 there and a 0 there, it gets no points. If there's a 1 there and a 1 there, it will get 11. If there's a 1 here and a 0 there, it will get 3, and in this case, because 0 there and a 1 here, it will get 8 points for having won at the distance but not having won on the track. And so therefore, because the benchmark is 5.5, it gets 2.5 as far as rating points are concerned. And then to get the overall rating for the horse, we just add up all of these numbers, and I've got the spreadsheet set up so that it will do it automatically for you. In this case, Mr. Pickwick has a total of 11.5. And so now let's have a look at another horse in the race. To have a look at Under Oath. I won't take you through all of it. It will take up too much time. But once I've done all of that, because it's an outside the race, it gets only 3 points for price and barriers. So it gets a rating of -2. Its last 3 starts, points came to only 15. It loses 1.5 there. The weight, it's carrying 3 kilograms more than the benchmark, so it loses 3. However, it is down in class, and so therefore it does get a bonus of 5 points for that. And it has won at the distance, so it gets a bonus of 2.5 for that. Adding them all together, we get a rating of 1. So clearly the wagon wheel is saying that Mr. Pickwick has a much better chance of winning the race than Under Oath. And in fact, the prices actually say that, with Mr. Pickwick being second favourite and Under Oath being a outsider in the field. So once we've done all of that for every horse, only horses with ratings above 0 are considered to have any chance of winning the race. So in this case, Under Oath just snuck in for consideration, but if that total had been negative, so for example, if he had been running in the same class, then that number there would be 0. The overall rating here would be -4, and he would not be under consideration as having any chance of winning the race whatsoever. Well, you're now looking at the wagon wheel spreadsheet, and in the light blue cells is where you will enter all of the data. So the horses' names, and then all the data, price, barrier, total of last 3 runs, and so on, all the way down to the points for having won on the track or the distance. The engine that drives all of this is hidden from view at the moment. You can see here that the columns are jumping from N up to AF. So if I was to unhide these columns, you can see there's a whole lot of stuff going on over in the back here. There's nothing there at the moment because there's no data to work on. But in each of these cells, if you look up here in the formula bar, you're going to see some coding taking place there that is doing all of the calculations for you until you eventually come up with a rating and then the wagon wheel percentage of that, and then a price for the horse, which then is relayed back over to the left-hand side of the spreadsheet. Now, if you want to tweak around with this and work out exactly how it works, well, of course, you would open this up and see how the formulas are entered. But for the moment, we'll just hide it all again and return to the blank spreadsheet. And so, you probably could tweak this around and put some of these columns in different places, but at the moment I'm happy with it because right now, once I've finished entering all of the data, then it's going to tell me whether I need to bet on the horse and how much I need to bet. And these bets at the moment are set up to return $50. So based on the price that the wagon wheel assesses the horse at, it will calculate how much do I need to get on to return me $50 based on the wagon wheel price. The price in here, of course, is the price displayed on the TAB or from the bookmaker that you're planning to bet with. So I have entered 22 races here. They're all of the races that I have spreadsheets for. I don't know what happened to the other 6, 8, 10 of them that I had. They've disappeared. But whatever the case, we've got 22 here that we can look at. So let's have a look at a couple of them. First of all, the 2-rack handicap. Now, it did pick the winner, I'm Thunderstruck, but it rated it at $4.95 as the wagon wheel price, and the bookmaker price was only $3.20. So there was no bet to be made on that particular horse. There were 2 horses, though, that the wagon wheel suggested could be bet on. Neither of them won, of course, because I'm Thunderstruck won. But altogether, we would have invested $11.96 for no return. The Caulfield Cup, it did pick the winner of that, but the price was way too low. So we would have invested $22 and not got a return. The Everest, it picked the winner again, but the price was too low. So again, having picked the winner, we've missed the price. You might be thinking, gee whiz, John, shouldn't just back the top pick. Well, yeah, at the moment the top pick is going well, but we will have a look at a situation here where betting on the value horses is very much to your benefit. So looking at the Cranbourne Cup, top pick here, won again. Yes, won again. That's 4 out of 4. It started off with an absolute rush. Wagon wheel priced it at $5.46. You could have got $7.50, and so therefore the bet would have been $9.16 on that horse. But you would have backed 3 others as well in the race. 4 races out of 4 where it's come up and found the winner for you, but that's not always the case. And if we come along a little bit further, let's try, let's say, the Ballarat Cup here. The top pick in the race was Thought of That at $4.07, but his price was only $3, so therefore it was not a bet. It was actually the 3rd pick in the race, Zaydani, rated at $5.57 by the wagon wheel, that was a bet because you could get $7.50 about it with the bookmakers or the online TAB. And so therefore we've invested $25.70 in total, but got back around about $70 odd because we've backed the horse, which was at good value. If we look at another race where this was the case, looking at the Vobis, looks like Elvis was not the top pick. It was the 2nd pick in the race. Here we are at $4.81. The top pick was Yulong January, but Yulong January was too short, so no bet. Looks like Elvis, priced at $8. I think I actually got $8.50 on the day. Would have been a bet. So we've bet $13.89 on the race and got back $10 times by $8.50. So we've got back $85 based on that. So there are 22 races there that you can review at your leisure. And at the front here is the template, which you can use to then input your own data for races that you feel the wagon wheel is well suited to investing on. So having done that, let's have a look at what the results for the strategy have been. And so on the Google Sheet there are 22 races for you to look at. They are all the spreadsheets that I've kept. I've deleted some. I don't know why I did, but I have. Out of those 22 races, the wagon wheel found the winner of 11 of them. So an investment of $22, $1 per race, would have returned you $47, more than 100% return. But be mindful of the fact that it's not consistent. Out of the last 12 races, there have been only 3 winners, 2 of which have been very short prices. And so on those 12 races, the investment of $12 has only returned $7.58. No guarantees this is going to consistently find you the winner of races on a regular basis. But if you do bet on just the value horses, which I've been talking about on my Friday wagon wheel reports, the value betting would have required you to place $447 of bets for a return of $704. And the strike rate of doing it there is a bit over 40%. In fact, looking at the strike rate as it currently stands after last Saturday's results, we've had 28 races since I started doing this on Wagon Wheel Friday. We've invested a total of $552 on value horses, found a winner 43% of the time, in other words 43% of the races we found a winner in, and we've got a profit of $213 for return on investment of 28%. So things are going along okay at the moment for the Wagon Wheel. So I hope you're enjoying the challenge of finding the winners of the thoroughbred races and having a few bets on them. At the moment things are looking a little bit positive, but it's very, very early days. I do hope though that you've found this tutorial useful and that you will take advantage of the ability to download it from Google Sheets. So until I catch up with you again very soon, thanks so much for watching.